The huge meeting room buzzed with fear and anger. Creatures from 47 different worlds sat in their special chairs, watching the big screen that showed their worst nightmare. The Void Swarm was coming, and nothing could stop it. Admiral Kexithera stood at the front of the room. Her body looked like it was made of purple crystals, and when she moved, light danced across her skin. She had fought in more wars than most species had even heard of. Today, she looked scared. "We have lost 12 star systems," she said. Her voice came through the translation machines in 47 different languages. The swarm destroyed everything: planets, moons, space stations. They turned it all into more machines for their army. The screen showed pictures that made everyone sick. Beautiful worlds that used to have cities and forests were now gray balls of metal. The swarm had eaten everything alive and built factories where gardens used to grow. Captain Jake Murphy sat in the back corner of the room. He was from Earth, and he looked just like what most aliens thought humans looked like. Medium height, brown hair starting to turn gray, and eyes that had seen too many battles. Next to him, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes typed notes on her computer tablet. She was younger than Jake, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. "The Xanthari Empire will send 3,000 ships," announced Admiral Kexithera. The Crystal Woman's people were known for having the biggest fleet in the galaxy. Around the room, other species started making their promises. The Aquarian Collective would send 2,000 bioships that looked more like giant space whales than metal warships. The Mechanical Collective promised 1,500 of their cube-shaped vessels that could repair themselves during battle. Everyone was giving numbers that made Jake's head spin. Some species promised 500 ships. Others offered 1,000. Even the smallest nations were sending at least 50 warships to fight the swarm. When the secretary called for Earth's contribution, the whole room got quiet. Jake stood up slowly. His old military uniform was clean but simple compared to the fancy clothes and armor that other species wore. "Humanity will send 1 ship," Jake said. For a moment, nobody made a sound. Then the room exploded with noise. Aliens started shouting in languages that sounded like music, grinding metal and bubbling water. Some of them could talk with their minds, and Jake felt angry thoughts pressing against his brain like a headache. Ambassador Veltar of the Aquarian Collective waved his tentacles in the air. He looked like a giant octopus wearing a fancy hat. "1 ship, just 1. Your whole planet will die if the swarm wins, and you send 1 tiny ship?" Jake did not change his expression. "The UES Retribution will represent Earth in this fight." More shouting started. Captain Zexmari of the Xanthari fleet pointed one of her crystal fingers at Jake. "This is an insult. Humans are either cowards or too stupid to understand what is happening." Other aliens agreed. They said humans were selfish. They said Earth did not care about the galaxy. Some even suggested that humans were secretly working with the swarm. Jake picked up his papers and walked toward the door. Lisa followed him, her face red with anger. As they left, Jake could hear the aliens still arguing about humanity's decision. "How can they only send 1 ship?" asked a robot from the Mechanical Collective. His voice sounded like a computer trying to sing. "Maybe they do not have any real warships," suggested another alien. "Humans are very new to space travel. Perhaps 1 ship is all they have." The meeting continued without the humans. Plans were made, fleets were organized. The great battle to save the galaxy would happen at Kepler Station in 1 week. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Susan Carter stood in her office high above the moon. Through the big window she could see the lunar shipyards where humans built their spaceships. Workers in spacesuits moved around like ants, putting the finishing touches on various vessels. But Susan was not looking at the small ships. She was looking at one particular ship that floated alone in its own special dock. The UES Retribution did not look like much. It was about the same size as a Xanthari heavy cruiser, but it was painted simple gray instead of the bright colors that other species loved. Commander Alex Stone stood at attention in front of Susan's desk. He was the captain of the Retribution, and he had been chosen very carefully for this mission. Alex was 35 years old, with black hair and green eyes. He had graduated first in his class from the Space Academy and had never lost a battle. "The aliens think we are sending a weak little ship to fight an army," Susan said quietly. She turned away from the window to look at Alex. Are you ready to show them what human engineering can really do? Alex smiled. Yes, ma'am. The crew is excited to finally put our training to use. Susan walked over to a safe and pulled out a small device that looked like a key. This is the activation code for the Omega Protocol. Do not use it unless you absolutely have to. The galaxy is not ready to see what we have really built. Alex took the device and put it in his pocket. Admiral, why are we keeping this secret? We could end the war in a few hours if we showed them our real capabilities. Susan sat down in her chair and looked tired. Alex, humans have been in space for less than 100 years. Every other species has been flying between stars for thousands of years. They think they know everything about war and technology. She pointed at the big screen on her wall that showed the alien fleets gathering at Kepler Station. Look at their ships. Beautiful, yes. Advanced, certainly. But they have not fought a real war in 300 years. They have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Alex nodded. And humans never forgot. Exactly. We spent our entire history fighting each other. We learned to be creative, to be sneaky, to never give up. When the galaxy finally faces a real threat, they will need those skills. Susan stood up and walked back to the window. The Retribution was still floating in its dock, looking innocent and harmless. Let them think we are weak, Alex. Let them think we are scared. When the time comes, show them why Earth only needs to send one ship. Alex saluted and left the office. As he walked through the corridors of the lunar base, he thought about his crew. There were 300 people on the Retribution, and every single one of them was the best at their job. They had trained for this mission for 2 years, practicing maneuvers that no alien had ever seen. Tomorrow, they would fly to Kepler Station and join the Great Fleet. The aliens would probably laugh at their small ship and simple appearance. They would never guess that the Retribution carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, or that its hull hid secrets that would change space warfare forever. The galaxy had asked why humanity sent just one ship. Soon they would have their answer. Kepler Station was the biggest thing Alex Stone had ever seen. The space station was as large as a small moon, with docking bays that could hold 1,000 ships. Lights blinked across its surface like stars, and massive towers reached out into space to guide incoming vessels. The combined galactic fleet was already there when the Retribution arrived. Alex stood on his bridge and watched through the main window as alien ships moved in perfect formations. The Zenthari vessels looked like flying cathedrals made of crystal, each one glowing with its own inner light. Aquarian bioships pulsed with blue and green colors, their living hulls breathing slowly like sleeping whales. The mechanical collective had sent their cube ships, each one exactly the same size and painted the same silver color. They moved together, like dancers, never getting out of line. Other species had ships that looked like flowers or swords or things that Alex could not even name. Commander Stone counted the vessels on his tactical screen. Over 8,000 ships from dozens of different worlds, all here to fight the Void Swarm. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. The Retribution looked tiny compared to the alien warships. Alex had ordered his crew to paint the ship a boring gray color and remove any decorations that might make it look impressive. From the outside, it appeared to be just another human vessel, no different from the cargo ships and civilian transports that Earth used for trade. Lieutenant Ben Rogers sat at the tactical station, watching the alien communications. Ben was 28 years old, with red hair and freckles. He had grown up on Mars and joined the Space Navy to see the galaxy. What he was seeing now made him angry. "Captain, you need to hear this," Ben said. He turned up the volume on the alien radio chatter. "Look at the human ship," Captain Zexmari was saying to someone else. Her crystal voice sounded amused. "It is smaller than our escort fighters. What do they think they can do with that tiny thing?" Another voice answered her. "Maybe humans do not understand the size of this threat. Their species is very young. They probably think one ship is enough to help." More laughter came through the speakers. "I heard their weapons are still chemical explosives," said a mechanical voice. "Very primitive. We should put them in the back, where they will be safe." At the communication station, Katie Rogers felt her face turn red with anger. Katie was Ben's younger sister, and she had the same red hair and quick temper. She was only 25, but was already one of the best comm officers in the fleet. "Sir," Katie said through gritted teeth, "should I respond to their transmissions?" Alex shook his head. "Let them talk, Katie. They will understand soon enough." The fleet orders came through a few hours later. Admiral Kexthera's flagship, a massive crystal palace called the Eternal Star, would lead the attack. The other alien ships were arranged by size and firepower, with the biggest and strongest vessels in front. The human ship was assigned to the rear guard, along with a few small alien vessels that were considered too weak for real combat. The official reason was to avoid unnecessary losses of primitive technology. Alex read the orders without changing his expression, but inside he was smiling. The aliens were making exactly the mistake he had hoped they would make. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Sam Walker was running final checks on systems that did not appear on any official blueprint. Sam was 50 years old and had been building Starship engines since before Alex was born. His hands were covered with old scars from working with dangerous machinery, and his gray beard was always a little messy. "All systems are green, Captain," Sam reported over the intercom. "The special equipment is ready when you need it." Sam's daughter Amy worked at the navigation station on the bridge. Amy Walker was 32 years old and had a mathematics degree from the best university on Earth. She could plot courses through space that were so precise they impressed even the computer-obsessed mechanical collective. "Navigation is ready, sir," Amy reported. "I have programmed 17 different attack patterns into the system, just like we practiced." Alex nodded. During their 2 years of training, the Retribution crew had practiced maneuvers that no alien species had ever seen. They had learned to fight in ways that took advantage of human creativity and unpredictability. The alien fleet began moving toward their target, a star system called Hadron, where the Void Swarm had built a forward base. Intelligence reports said there were about 10,000 swarm ships in the system, converting planets into factories to build more machines. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, the alien ships traveled in neat, organized groups. Each species stayed with their own kind, following battle plans that had worked for hundreds of years. They used formations that were taught in military academies across the galaxy. The Retribution traveled with the rear guard, looking like just another weak ship that needed protection. Alex watched the hyperspace tunnel flow past his window and thought about what was waiting for them at Hadron. The Void Swarm was not like other enemies the galaxy had faced. Most aliens fought with honor and followed rules. They declared war, formally fought pitched battles, and signed peace treaties when they were done. The Swarm did not follow any rules. They appeared out of dark space, attacked without warning, and turned everything they conquered into more machines. They did not negotiate or surrender. They just consumed and grew stronger. "Captain," Katie said from her station, "Admiral Kexthera is broadcasting to the fleet." "Put it on speakers," Alex ordered. The crystal woman's voice filled the bridge. "All ships, we are approaching the Hadron system. Remember your training and follow your orders. Today we stop the swarm's advance and save the galaxy." Cheers came through the comm system from alien crews. Some species sang battle songs. Others chanted prayers to their gods. The mechanical collective ships just hummed louder as they prepared their weapons. On the Retribution, Alex's crew worked quietly at their stations. They did not sing or cheer. They just checked their equipment one more time and waited for orders. "Ben, what is the status of our special weapons?" Alex asked. "All systems ready, sir. The aliens have no idea what we are really carrying." Alex smiled. The Retribution looked like a simple human warship, but hidden inside its hull were weapons and systems that represented the best of human engineering. While other species had spent centuries perfecting the same old technology, humans had been thinking of new ways to fight. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Hadron system. Immediately, every alarm in the galaxy started screaming. The Void Swarm was not just 10,000 ships. There were over 50,000 enemy vessels waiting for them, and more were being built every minute on the converted planets. "All ships retreat," Admiral Kexthera shouted over the radio. We need to regroup and call for reinforcements. The alien fleet began to turn around, their perfect formations breaking apart as panic set in. Some ships were already taking damage from long-range swarm weapons. Alex stood up from his captain's chair and straightened his uniform. Around him, his crew looked calm and ready. "Katie, open a channel to the fleet," he said. "Channel open, sir." "This is Commander Stone of the UES Retribution," Alex said into his microphone. "We are going to buy you time to reorganize. Retribution is moving to engage." The response was immediate. Every alien captain started shouting at once, telling Alex he was crazy and would be destroyed. Admiral Kexithara herself broke protocol to scream, "Stone, you will be killed. One ship cannot face this army." Alex looked at his crew and saw determination in their eyes. They had trained for this moment for 2 years. They were ready. "Admiral," Alex said calmly, "you asked why humanity sent just one ship. You are about to find out. All stations, prepare for combat." The void swarm ships looked like metal insects swarming toward the Retribution. Each enemy vessel was perfectly black, with no windows or lights. They moved together like a single creature, turning and diving in formation as they approached the lone human ship. Alex Stone watched the tactical display as 50,000 enemy contacts moved closer. Behind him, the alien fleet was already retreating toward the edge of the star system. Some of the faster swarm ships were chasing them, firing weapons that turned space into a light show of destruction. "Ben, how long until they reach us?" Alex asked. Lieutenant Rogers checked his instruments. "First wave will be in weapons range in 4 minutes, sir. They are coming fast." The swarm had different types of ships. The smallest ones were about the size of fighter jets, but they moved in groups of 100. Medium ships were as big as destroyers with weapons that could crack a moon in half. The largest vessels were the size of cities, covered with factories that built new ships even during battle. "Katie, are you still getting signals from the alien fleet?" Alex asked. "Yes, sir. Admiral Kexithara is ordering us to retreat immediately. She says we cannot win against these numbers." Alex smiled. "Tell the Admiral that humans do not retreat when people need help." At the engineering station, Sam Walker was bringing online systems that had never been tested in real combat. His fingers moved across control panels that were not connected to any computer the aliens knew about. Deep inside the ship, machinery hummed to life with a sound like music. "Captain, all special systems are ready," Sam reported. "The aliens are about to see what human engineers can really build." Amy Walker plotted an attack course that took the Retribution directly into the heart of the swarm formation. Her calculations were so complex that even the ship's computer had trouble following them. She was planning to fly between enemy ships at speeds that should have been impossible. "Navigation. Ready, sir." Course plotted for maximum surprise. The first swarm ships opened fire when they were still 500,000 kilometers away. Beams of energy that could melt steel reached across space toward the Retribution. The alien fleet watched in horror, expecting to see the human ship destroyed immediately. Instead, something incredible happened. The enemy weapons hit empty space where the Retribution should have been. The ship had moved so fast that it seemed to teleport from one place to another. "What just happened?" Captain Zexmari asked over the radio. Her crystal voice was full of confusion. On the Retribution's bridge, Amy smiled as she completed the first impossible maneuver. "Quantum displacement successful, Captain. We moved 300 kilometers in 0 time. The swarm ships tried to track their target, but the Retribution kept appearing in different places. 1 second, it was above them. The next, it was behind them. Then it was coming straight at them from the front. How are they doing that?" Admiral Kexithara whispered over the open channel. Alex decided it was time to give them a real show. "Ben, are weapons ready?" "All systems online and loaded, sir. Ready to fire on your command." "Katie, open a channel." To the alien fleet. "Channel open, Captain. This is Commander Stone to all Allied vessels. You wanted to know why Earth sent just one ship. Watch and learn. All stations. Engage the enemy." The Retribution transformed. Panels on its hull slid open to reveal weapons that had been completely hidden. What the aliens had thought was a simple gray warship suddenly bristled with cannons, missile launchers and devices they did not recognize. "Fire all weapons," Alex ordered. Space exploded with light. The Retribution unleashed a storm of destruction that made the alien weapons look like toys. Kinetic rounds moved so fast they were invisible, punching holes through swarm ships like bullets through paper. Energy beams cut through enemy formations, destroying dozens of vessels with each shot. But the most impressive weapons were the ones that bent the laws of physics. Quantum torpedoes folded space around their targets, making enemy ships implode into tiny black holes. Gravity cannons crushed entire squadrons by creating artificial gravity fields that no ship could escape. In 30 seconds, over 1,000 swarm vessels were destroyed. Debris filled space where enemy formations used to be. The alien fleet watched in shocked silence. Every captain was trying to understand what they had just seen. The humans had weapons that should not have been possible to build. "Ben, how are our shields holding?" Alex asked. "Dimensional barriers at full strength, sir. Enemy weapons cannot penetrate our defenses." The Retribution's shields were another human innovation. Instead of using energy fields like other species, humans had learned to twist space-time itself. Enemy weapons hit the ship's position, but the ship was actually existing in a slightly different dimension. Amy piloted the Retribution through the swarm formation like a dancer. The ship moved in 3 dimensions at once, spiraling between enemy vessels while firing constantly. Her navigation was so precise that she could fly between 2 enemy ships with only meters to spare. "This is impossible," Captain Zexmari said over the radio. "No ship can move like that." Dr. Helen Clark, the Retribution's science officer, had been monitoring the alien communications. Helen was 40 years old with brown hair and glasses. She had 3 degrees in physics and had helped design most of the ship's advanced systems. "Captain, the aliens want to know how we are doing this," Helen reported. "Tell them the truth," Alex said. "Humans never stopped learning." Helen opened a channel to Admiral Kexthera. "Admiral, your species have been using the same technology for hundreds of years. You perfected your weapons and ships, then stopped improving them. Humans never stopped trying to build something better." The swarm began to adapt to the human weapons, as they always did. New ship designs emerged from the enemy factories with armor designed to resist kinetic rounds and shields that could deflect energy beams. "Sir, the swarm is modifying their ships," Ben reported. "They are learning to counter our weapons." Alex nodded. He had expected this. The swarm's ability to adapt was what made them so dangerous. But humans had planned for this too. "Ben, switch to Configuration 2. Configuration 2, aye, sir." The Retribution's weapons changed again. The ship carried dozens of different weapon systems, each one designed for different situations. When the swarm adapted to kinetic rounds, the humans switched to plasma cannons. When the enemy developed plasma shields, the humans used particle beams. "How many different weapons do they have?" Admiral Kexthera asked in amazement. The answer came from an unexpected source. Sam Walker had been listening to the alien communications, and he was proud of his ship. "Admiral, this is Chief Engineer Walker. We have 47 different primary weapon systems, 112 secondary weapons, and 600 different ammunition types. Every time the enemy adapts, we have something new to try." The alien fleet began moving closer to the battle, inspired by the human ship's example. Some of the braver captains started firing long-range shots at swarm vessels that had been damaged by the Retribution. But even with their advanced weapons, the humans were still facing overwhelming odds. 50,000 enemy ships was too many for any one vessel to destroy, no matter how advanced it was. Alex looked at the tactical display and made a decision that would change everything. "All stations, prepare for Omega Protocol," he announced. His crew's faces lit up with excitement. They had trained for this moment, but none of them had ever seen the Omega Protocol used in real combat. "Sir, are you sure?" Sam asked. "Once we activate Omega, there is no going back. The aliens will know everything." Alex thought about Admiral Carter's words back on Earth. The galaxy needed to see what humans could really do. The time for secrets was over. "Do it, Sam. Show them why Earth only needed to send one ship." The Retribution began to change in ways that made the alien observers question their understanding of physics. The ship's hull started flowing like liquid metal, expanding and reshaping itself into something completely different. "What is happening? To their ship?" Captain Zexmari whispered over the communication channel. Her crystal voice shook with confusion and fear. Alex Stone stood calmly on his bridge as the transformation continued around him. The walls stretched outward, the ceiling rose higher, and new sections of the ship grew from nothing. It was like watching a flower bloom, except this flower was made of metal and technology. "Sam, report on the transformation," Alex requested. Chief Engineer Walker's voice came from deep within the ship's expanding structure. "Omega Protocol is active, Captain. The constructor sequence is running perfectly. All manufacturing bays are online and ready for deployment." The truth was finally revealed. The Retribution had never been just a warship. It was a constructor platform, designed to build an entire fleet while hidden inside what looked like a single vessel. For 2 years, human engineers had worked to compress the machinery needed to create dozens of ships into a package small enough to fool alien observers. "Beginning autonomous vessel construction," Sam announced as massive bay doors opened along the ship's transformed hull. "First wave deployment in 30 seconds. The alien fleet watched in amazement as the Retribution gave birth to smaller ships. Each new vessel emerged fully formed and ready for battle, sliding out of construction bays like fighters launching from a carrier. But these were not fighters. They were full-sized warships, each one carrying the same advanced weapons that had surprised the swarm. "Echo Squadron online and ready for orders," announced Captain Dan Foster as his destroyer cleared the construction bay. Dan was 38 years old with black hair and a scar across his left cheek from a training accident. He had been waiting, in suspended animation inside the constructor for 6 months, dreaming of this moment. "Charlie Squadron deployed and standing by," reported Lieutenant Colonel Emma Davis. Her heavy cruiser was twice the size of the original Retribution, bristling with weapons that made alien dreadnoughts look weak. Emma was 42 years old and had commanded some of Earth's most advanced warships. One by one, human vessels emerged from the constructor ship. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and support vessels all came online with crews that had been waiting in suspended animation. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had given up normal lives to participate in humanity's greatest military secret. The alien observers tried to count the new ships, but more kept appearing. 10 ships became 20, then 50, then 100. The constructor continued building and deploying vessels as fast as its automated systems could work. "Captain Stone," Admiral Kexthara called over the radio, "how many ships are you deploying?" "Final count will be 347 vessels, Admiral," Alex replied calmly. Each one crewed by Earth's finest military personnel. The swarm reacted to this new threat by changing their attack formation. Thousands of enemy ships turned away from the retreating alien fleet and swarmed toward the growing human formation. They fired everything they had, filling space with energy beams and missiles. The human ships met them head-on. Unlike the alien vessels that fought in neat formations, the humans spread out and attacked from all directions at once. They used tactics that seemed chaotic but were actually carefully planned. Captain Foster's destroyer group hit the swarm's left flank, while Lieutenant Colonel Davis attacked from above. Other human ships appeared behind enemy formations, having used the same quantum displacement technology that made the original Retribution so hard to target. "All human vessels, this is Commander Stone," Alex broadcast. "Execute Pattern 7. The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. They had practiced these maneuvers for months in Earth's asteroid belt, learning to fight as a single unit while maintaining individual freedom of action. The swarm tried to adapt to human tactics, but adaptation took time. The mechanical enemies were used to fighting predictable opponents who followed standard military doctrine. Humans fought like they were still competing with each other, using tricks and strategies that no alien military academy had ever taught. "Ben, what is our overall tactical situation?" Alex asked. Lieutenant Rogers checked his expanded tactical display, which now showed readings from all 300 human ships. "We have successfully engaged approximately 40% of the swarm forces, sir. Enemy casualties are mounting rapidly, but they are still trying to overwhelm us through sheer numbers." The battle became a demonstration of different military philosophies. The swarm relied on overwhelming force and gradual adaptation. The aliens used traditional tactics that had worked for centuries. Humans used creativity, unpredictability, and the willingness to try dangerous maneuvers that other species would never attempt. Amy Walker coordinated fleet navigation from her position on the command ship. Her plot showed human vessels moving in patterns that looked random but were actually mathematical equations translated into movement. Ships appeared where the enemy least expected them and disappeared before effective counterattacks could be launched. "Katie, patch me through to the alien fleet," Alex ordered. "Channel open, sir." "Admiral Kexthera, this is Commander Stone. We have engaged the main swarm force. Request that Allied vessels join the attack and help us finish this battle." There was a pause before the Crystal Woman responded. "Commander, we are moving to support your position. But I must ask, how long has humanity possessed this capability?" Alex smiled as he watched his ships tear through swarm formations on the tactical display. "Admiral, humans have been preparing for the day when the galaxy would need us. We just never imagined you would ask us to hold back our capabilities." The combined fleet, now led by human tactical coordination, pressed their attack against the swarm. The mechanical enemies found themselves fighting on multiple fronts against opponents who refused to follow the rules of conventional warfare. Dr. Helen Clark monitored swarm communication signals from her science station. "Captain, the enemy is attempting to coordinate a massive counterattack. They are concentrating their largest vessels for a final push." Alex looked at the tactical display and saw what Helen meant. The swarm's city-sized factory ships were moving together, forming a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space. They intended to crush the human fleet through pure mass and firepower. "All human vessels, this is Commander Stone," Alex broadcast. "The enemy is massing for a final attack. Time to show them why humans are the galaxy's newest apex predators. All ships execute Siegebreaker protocol." The human fleet regrouped into attack formations that would have been impossible for any other species. Ships paired up and began covering each other's approaches to the enemy wall. Some vessels used their quantum displacement drives to appear inside the enemy formation, attacking the factory ships from within their own defensive perimeter. Captain Foster's destroyer appeared directly above one of the largest swarm vessels and fired its main gun straight down into the enemy's hull. The shots went completely through the ship and came out the bottom, destroying internal systems that the enemy thought were protected. Lieutenant Colonel Davis coordinated a group attack that surrounded another factory ship and fired from 6 directions at once. The swarm vessel tried to rotate to present its strongest armor, but there was no direction that was not under attack. "Sir," Ben reported, "swarm forces are beginning to retreat. Several of their factory ships have been destroyed, and they appear to be falling back to defensive positions around the inner planets." Alex watched the enemy withdrawal on his screen. The swarm was not defeated yet, but they had learned that humans were not the easy targets they had expected. "All ships, maintain pursuit," Alex ordered. "We finish this here and now. No swarm vessel leaves this system alive." The chase continued toward the inner planets of the Hadron system. The swarm had converted 3 worlds into manufacturing centers, and they were using them as fortresses. But humans had answers for that too. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans went to war, they did not stop until the job was finished. The inner planets of the Hadron system had been transformed into mechanical nightmares. Where once there had been blue oceans and green forests, now there were only gray metal surfaces covered with factories and weapons platforms. The swarm had eaten everything alive and built fortress worlds that bristled with defensive systems. Alex Stone studied the tactical display as his fleet approached the converted planets. Thousands of swarm ships orbited each world, ready to defend their manufacturing centers. Massive gun emplacements on the planetary surfaces could fire into space, creating overlapping fields of destruction that would tear apart any attacking fleet. "Ben, what are we looking at?" Alex asked. Lieutenant Rogers analyzed the sensor readings. 3 fortress worlds, sir. Each one has approximately 8,000 defending ships plus surface weapons. The planets themselves are manufacturing new swarm vessels every few minutes. It should have been an impossible battle. No fleet in galactic history had ever successfully attacked a fortified swarm world. The mechanical enemies always had too many ships and too many weapons, But Alex was not thinking like other fleet commanders. He was thinking like a human. Amy, can you plot an approach that takes us through the asteroid belt between planets 2 and 3? Navigation Officer Walker checked her instruments. Yes, sir. But that belt is full of debris from destroyed ships. It will be very dangerous to fly through. Perfect. The swarm will not expect us to use that route because other species would consider it too risky. Alex opened a channel to his fleet. All human vessels, this is Commander Stone. We are going to attack all 3 planets simultaneously. I know. It sounds impossible, but impossible is what humans do best. The plan was typically human in its complexity and audacity. The fleet would split into 3 groups, each one taking a different approach to their target planet. They would use the asteroid debris as cover, hit the enemy from unexpected angles, and rely on superior mobility to avoid getting trapped in defensive crossfires. Captain Foster would lead the attack on the first planet, using his destroyer group's speed to hit and run against orbital defenses. Lieutenant Colonel Davis would take her heavy cruisers against the second planet, relying on firepower to punch through enemy shields. Alex would personally lead the assault on the third planet, which appeared to be the swarm's main command center. All groups begin your attacks, Alex ordered. The human fleet scattered like leaves in the wind, each group heading toward its target through space that should have been impossible to navigate. They flew between chunks of destroyed ships, used dead satellites as cover, and appeared from directions that the swarm had not thought to defend. Captain Foster's destroyers came screaming out of an asteroid field at maximum speed, their quantum displacement drives making them almost impossible to target. They fired their weapons while moving so fast that they seemed to be in multiple places at once. Fox Squadron engaging orbital defenses, Foster reported as his ships tore through a formation of swarm cruisers. Enemy response is confused and uncoordinated. The swarm had been designed to fight enemies who approached in orderly formations and followed predictable tactics. They were not prepared for humans who attacked from 6 directions at once while flying through fields of space debris at speeds that other species would consider suicidal. Lieutenant Colonel Davis led her heavy cruisers in a frontal assault that looked like military madness but was actually carefully calculated chaos. Her ships flew straight at the planet's strongest defenses, absorbing incredible amounts of enemy fire while their advanced shields deflected most of the damage. Charlie Squadron penetrating enemy perimeter, Davis announced as her battleships broke through the orbital defense grid, beginning bombardment of surface installations. The swarm's planetary weapons were powerful but slow to target. They had been built to destroy large alien dreadnoughts that moved in stately formations. Human ships that changed direction every few seconds while spinning and rolling through 3-dimensional maneuvers were almost impossible for the automated systems to track. Alex led his group toward the command planet using a route that took them through the wreckage of an ancient space battle. Dead ships from a dozen different species drifted in the void, their hulls cracked and their weapons silent. The swarm had left them there as a warning to other species. Retribution group entering the graveyard, Alex reported as his ships flew between the hulks of destroyed vessels. Sensors show heavy swarm presence ahead. Amy Walker piloted the reformed Retribution through the maze of dead ships with precision that amazed even her fellow humans. She flew the massive constructor ship between obstacles with only meters to spare, using gravitational fields from the derelict vessels to mask their approach. Contact, Ben Rogers announced as swarm ships detected the human formation. Enemy vessels moving to intercept. Count is... Sir, there are over 12,000 ships defending this planet. All ships engage at will, Alex ordered. Remember your training and trust your teammates. What followed was the largest space battle in galactic history. 3 separate human fleets attacked 3 different planets at the same time, using tactics that no enemy had ever faced before. Ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, struck like lightning, and vanished before effective counterattacks could be mounted. The alien fleet that had been following the humans finally arrived at the battle zone. Admiral Kexathara watched the tactical displays with amazement, as human ships performed maneuvers that violated every principle of safe space navigation. How are they doing this? She asked her tactical officer. They are flying through asteroid fields at full combat speed while engaging enemy formations. This should be impossible. Dr. Helen Clark, monitoring communications from the Retribution, provided the answer. Admiral, humans have been flying in dangerous conditions for their entire history. We learned to navigate on a planet with violent weather, unpredictable gravity fields, and atmospheric conditions that change constantly. Flying through space debris is actually easier than flying through a thunderstorm on Earth. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships darted between enemy formations like deadly dancers, striking targets and vanishing before the swarm could respond effectively. Gradually, the mechanical defenses began to break down under the constant pressure of attacks from unexpected directions. Sir, Ben reported, swarm command signals are becoming erratic. I think we are disrupting their coordination systems. Alex smiled. That had been part of the plan. The swarm relied on central coordination to control their vast numbers of ships. Human attacks were specifically designed to target command vessels and communication arrays. Captain Foster's destroyers had cleared the orbital defenses around the first planet and were now attacking the surface installations. Fox Squadron to all units, First Planet's manufacturing capability is down to 30% and falling. Lieutenant Colonel Davis was having similar success. Charlie Squadron reporting Second Planet's defenses are collapsing. We have eliminated their main weapons platforms. Alex looked at the tactical display showing the command planet ahead of his group. The swarm had concentrated their remaining forces around this world, creating a dense shell of ships and weapons that completely surrounded the planet. All Retribution Group vessels. This is Commander Stone. Time for our final demonstration. Let's show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to end a war. The human ships formed up in a formation that looked like a spear point, with the Retribution at the tip. They accelerated toward the planet at maximum speed, firing everything they had at the enemy formation. But this was not a suicide charge. As they approached the enemy line, the human ships used their quantum displacement drives to phase shift through different dimensions. They passed through the swarm defenses like ghosts and appeared inside the defensive perimeter. All ships, target the planetary core, Alex ordered. The human fleet fired their most powerful weapons directly at the planet's surface. Not to destroy the world, but to disable the massive computer systems that the swarm had built in the planet's crust. Without their central coordination, the remaining swarm ships would become mindless drones. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across all 3 planets, swarm ships began losing coordination. They flew into each other, fired at empty space, and generally behaved like machines that had lost their programming. All enemy vessels have ceased organized resistance, Ben reported. The swarm network has been severed. The battle was over. 50,000 swarm ships floated dead in space, their central command system destroyed. The threat that had terrorized the galaxy for months had been eliminated in a single day by a human fleet that had emerged from what everyone thought was just one small ship. Admiral Kexathera's voice came over the communication system. Commander, Stone. The Galactic Council owes humanity an apology and an explanation. How long has your species possessed this capability? Alex looked around his bridge at the crew members who had made this victory possible. Sam Walker with his engineering genius, Amy Walker with her impossible navigation skills, Ben Rogers with his tactical brilliance, Katie Rogers with her communication expertise, and Dr. Helen Clark with her scientific knowledge. Admiral, Alex replied, humans have been preparing for the day when the GA